Welcome back, darling. The world shifted before I even understood what was happening. A voice drifted through the darkness around me, deep, calm, and impossibly certain. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, wrapping around my thoughts like a heavy curtain. Don't struggle. The words settled over me with strange weight. When I opened my eyes, I found myself lying in an unfamiliar bedroom. Moonlight spilled through towering windows overlooking a glittering city skyline. Expensive furniture filled the room, polished to perfection, while dark blue curtains swayed gently in the night breeze. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. Then I tried to move. A sharp wave of confusion rushed through me. Everything felt wrong. The mattress beneath me felt larger. My body felt lighter. Even the way I occupied space seemed unfamiliar. My heartbeat accelerated as I pushed myself upright. My arms trembled. I froze. Those weren't my hands. The fingers looked slimmer. The wrists were narrower. Pale strands of chestnut-colored hair fell across my vision. No. The whisper escaped my lips. Even my voice sounded different. Panic surged through me. I scrambled toward the edge of the bed, nearly stumbling as my feet touched the floor. The room seemed to tilt beneath me. My balance was completely off, forcing me to steady myself against a nearby dresser. My breathing became shallow. Something had happened. Something impossible. A towering mirror stood across the room. Drawn by equal parts fear and desperation, I moved toward it. Every step felt unfamiliar. Every movement reminded me that the body I was controlling no longer behaved the way I expected. When I finally reached the mirror, my entire world shattered. A stranger stared back. She looked to be in her 20s, with striking features, expressive eyes, and long dark hair cascading over her shoulders. The elegant clothes she wore clearly belonged to someone accustomed to wealth and influence. I stared. The reflection stared back. No. My voice cracked. This isn't real. I touched my face. The woman in the mirror copied the motion. My hands shook violently. I wasn't looking at someone else. I was looking at myself. Or rather, whatever I had become. Fragments of memory collided inside my head. My name was Alex. I remembered my apartment, my job, my friends, my life. Yet the reflection before me knew none of those things. A strange pressure began building behind my eyes. Suddenly, flashes of unfamiliar memories appeared. Luxury offices, corporate meetings, private jets, charity galas. A name surfaced from the chaos. Amber Collins. The memory vanished as quickly as it arrived. I stumbled backward. No, that's not me. The words sounded weak. The certainty behind them was fading. A knock echoed through the room. My entire body stiffened. The door opened before I could respond. A tall man stepped inside. He carried himself with absolute confidence, as though he owned not only the room but everything connected to it. His expression remained calm, yet there was something unsettling about the way he studied me. Like he had been expecting this moment. Like he already knew exactly what I was thinking. "You're awake," he said. "Who are you?" I demanded. The question came out shakier than intended. The man smiled faintly. "That's not the question you want answered." Fear twisted inside my stomach. "Then answer the one I'm asking." His eyes moved toward the silver pendant hanging around my neck. For the first time, I noticed it. Ancient symbols were engraved across its surface. A faint glow pulsed beneath the metal. The man's expression darkened. "The pendant has finished its work." My pulse thundered. What does that mean? It means reality has changed. The room suddenly felt colder. "You're lying." I wish I was. The pendant flashed briefly. A wave of dizziness struck me. More memories flooded into my mind. Years of experiences that weren't mine. Board meetings, luxury vacations, business negotiations, entire conversations I had never lived through, yet somehow remembered perfectly. I grabbed my head. "Make it stop." The stranger watched silently. "You're fighting it." "Of course I'm fighting it. Most people would." The memories continued pouring in. Each one felt sharper than the last. Each one threatened to bury the life I actually remembered. My knees nearly gave out. The man stepped forward and caught me before I fell. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Outside the windows, the city lights stretched endlessly into the distance. A completely different life waited beyond that glass. A life that somehow belonged to me now. Or perhaps always had. I no longer knew which possibility terrified me more. Who am I? I finally whispered. The question hung in the silence. The man looked toward the glowing pendant, then back at me. That, he said quietly, is something only you can decide. The city shimmered below. The memories continued shifting. And standing between two identities, I realized that the greatest battle ahead would not be against magic. It would be against forgetting who I once was. The woman staring back at me from every reflective surface was stunning, poised, and utterly unfamiliar. The person I used to be felt distant now, fading like a forgotten dream. In his place stood Amber, a woman whose beauty drew attention wherever she went, and whose emotions no longer obeyed the logic I once trusted. Deep inside her chest burned a confusing mixture of fear, excitement, and anticipation, growing stronger with every passing moment. The gleaming marble floor of the corporate headquarters stretched endlessly ahead of me. Each step sent the sharp click of my high heels echoing across the vast lobby. Walking itself had become a challenge. My body moved according to rules I had never learned. My hips swayed naturally with every stride, forcing me into a graceful rhythm that felt both foreign and unavoidable. My posture had changed completely. My lower back curved subtly, adjusting to a different balance and shape. Every movement seemed designed to draw attention, whether I wanted it to or not. "Good morning, Amber." The familiar voice startled me from my thoughts. I turned toward the front desk where Sarah sat smiling warmly. My fingers tightened around the strap of my designer handbag as panic fluttered through my chest. "Morning, Sarah," I replied. The voice that emerged still surprised me. It was soft, smooth, and melodic, nothing like the confident tone I remembered. Even hearing it made warmth rush to my cheeks. "Mr. Vance is already in his office," she said. "He left coffee on your desk again. Honestly, Amber, I think he's the sweetest man in the building." The comment struck me harder than it should have. Every mention of Alan stirred emotions that felt increasingly impossible to ignore. Something deep inside me reacted before my mind could catch up. As I continued through the office, reality became even more unsettling. Employees glanced up as I passed. Men who had once treated me as an executive peer now watched me differently. Their eyes lingered longer than necessary, following the elegant lines of my tailored skirt and fitted blouse. Their expressions carried admiration, curiosity, and something else I preferred not to examine too closely. I lowered myself into my chair outside Alan's office. The movement caused my skirt to shift slightly higher, exposing a glimpse of smooth skin above my knee. Instinctively, I adjusted it, but even that simple motion felt strangely self-conscious. Everything seemed magnified. The delicate fabric brushing against my skin, the fitted cut of my clothes, the faint scent of expensive perfume surrounding me. Every sensation served as a constant reminder of how dramatically my world had changed. My thoughts battled endlessly against one another. This shouldn't feel natural. This shouldn't feel comfortable. Yet part of me couldn't deny how effortlessly I fit into this new reality. The confidence of my former life felt increasingly distant, drowned beneath waves of unfamiliar emotions. Later that evening, my coworker Jessica convinced me to accompany her to the executive wellness spa located several floors above the offices. The atmosphere inside felt completely different from the bustling corporate environment below. Warm lighting bathed the room in gold. The air carried traces of eucalyptus and jasmine. Massive mirrors reflected every corner of the luxurious space. Standing before one of them, I slowly removed my work attire. Piece by piece, the carefully constructed image of the successful executive disappeared. When I finally looked up, I found myself staring at a reflection that still managed to leave me speechless. The transformation was breathtaking. Every sharp edge that had once defined my appearance had vanished. In their place were softer lines, graceful curves, and a delicate elegance that seemed almost unreal. My waist narrowed dramatically before flowing into gentle curves. My posture appeared naturally graceful. Even standing still, the reflection projected confidence and beauty. For a long moment, I simply stared. "Wow," Jessica said quietly beside me. I glanced toward her. She shook her head with genuine admiration. "Amber, you look incredible." I immediately looked away, embarrassed by the attention. "Seriously," she continued, "you look happier than I've ever seen you." The compliment sent another wave of warmth through me. I wasn't sure how to respond. The truth was far more complicated than anyone could possibly understand. After our spa session ended, I returned to my locker expecting to change back into my office clothes. Instead, I froze. Everything I had arrived in was gone. Hanging neatly inside was an elegant emerald green dress crafted from luxurious silk. Beside it sat a pair of stunning high-heeled sandals. A cream-colored card rested on top. I picked it up. The message was written in precise handwriting. "Put this on. Meet me at the private elevator. We're leaving for the weekend." My pulse quickened immediately. There was no signature. There didn't need to be. I already knew exactly who had sent it. With trembling hands, I changed into the dress. The silk draped effortlessly across my figure, emphasizing every curve while remaining impossibly elegant. The design was simple yet striking, leaving my shoulders bare and exposing the graceful line of my back. When I finished, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. She looked confident, sophisticated, beautiful, and entirely out of place inside my own memories. A short time later, I stepped into the executive elevator. The interior was lined with polished wood and brass accents, creating an atmosphere of quiet luxury. Alan was already there. The doors closed behind me with a soft sound, sealing us inside. "Alan," I said quietly. He turned. For a moment, neither of us spoke. His gaze traveled across the room before settling on me. "You look incredible," he said. The sincerity in his voice immediately made my heart race. As the elevator began descending, a slight shift in movement threw off my balance. The unfamiliar heels betrayed me. I stumbled forward. Before I could react, strong hands steadied me. Alan caught me effortlessly. His grip was firm and reassuring, preventing me from falling. For a brief moment, the world seemed to narrow around that single point of contact. The elevator continued its silent descent. Neither of us spoke. Yet the atmosphere between us felt charged with unspoken emotions, anticipation, and questions neither of us seemed ready to answer. As the city lights slowly appeared through the glass panels beyond the elevator shaft, I found myself wondering whether the person I had once been was truly gone, or merely waiting somewhere beneath the surface, struggling to be heard. "Easy now, little bird." Alan's voice flowed through the darkness like velvet wrapped around steel. There was amusement hidden beneath the words, but also complete certainty, as though he already knew exactly how this moment would end. "You're fragile now," he continued quietly. "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore." I was trapped. Behind me, the mirror's icy surface pressed against my back. In front of me stood Alan, radiating warmth and impossible confidence. There was nowhere to move, nowhere to escape. His familiar scent, sandalwood, oak, and something uniquely his filled every breath I took until it seemed impossible to think clearly. I tilted my head upward. The difference between us felt overwhelming. His broad frame towered over mine, making me painfully aware of how much everything had changed. The fading voice of Alex surfaced deep inside my mind. "Push him away. Take control. Remember who you are." Determined to resist, I placed my hands against his chest. For a moment, I intended to shove him backward. Instead, my fingers curled helplessly into the fabric of his jacket. The strength left me instantly. "I can manage on my own," I whispered. Even to my own ears, the statement sounded weak. Alan's expression softened into something almost sympathetic. "Can you?" His gaze drifted downward toward my trembling hands. "We both know that isn't true." The certainty in his voice struck harder than any argument. I hated how much it affected me. He slowly reached toward the silver pendant resting against my collarbone. The moment his fingers brushed the metal, a pulse of energy surged through me. My breath caught. Warmth raced through my veins like liquid sunlight. The room blurred around the edges. Every fear, every angry thought, every desperate attempt to hold on to certainty, all of it seemed to drift farther away. The pressure inside my mind eased. A strange calm settled over me. I hated how comforting it felt. Alan watched every reaction carefully. His thumb traced the edge of the pendant. "Stop fighting." The words weren't a command. They were an invitation. You've spent your entire life carrying burdens that were never yours. The glow from the necklace deepened. My thoughts felt slower, softer. Let someone else carry them for once. I closed my eyes. The temptation was terrifying. Part of me wanted to resist. Another part wanted desperately to rest. A small sound escaped my throat. Alan smiled. "There you are." The drive to the mountains passed like a dream. The city disappeared behind us. Skyscrapers gave way to winding roads. Streetlights vanished. Civilization faded into darkness. I sat silently beside him, watching shadows slip across the windows. Every mile carried us farther from the life I remembered. Farther from Alex. Farther from certainty. Eventually, the SUV turned onto a narrow private road surrounded by towering pine trees. The forest seemed endless. Dark. Silent. Untouched. When the vehicle finally stopped, I stared through the windshield. A breathtaking mansion stood before us. Glass walls reflected moonlight. Warm golden lights glowed inside. It looked less like a home and more like a hidden sanctuary carved into the mountainside. Or perhaps a beautiful prison. The distinction felt increasingly difficult to identify. Alan stepped from the vehicle and circled around to my side. He opened the door and offered his hand. For several seconds, I simply stared at it. The forest stretched endlessly behind him. The world I knew felt impossibly far away. Then I slipped my hand into his. His fingers closed around mine immediately. Secure. Certain. Possessive. And, to my horror, I felt safe. The realization followed me all the way to the entrance. The cool mountain air brushed against my skin. Before I could take more than a step, Alan effortlessly lifted me into his arms. A startled gasp escaped me. My hands automatically grabbed hold of his jacket. The movement felt natural. Far too natural. He carried me across the stone pathway without the slightest sign of effort. The ease with which he held me only highlighted how drastically everything had changed. Once, we had stood as equals. Now the difference felt impossible to ignore. "Relax," he murmured. His voice vibrated through his chest. "I've got you." The massive front doors opened. Warmth greeted us instantly. The interior was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the endless forest outside. A massive stone fireplace dominated the living room. Golden firelight danced across polished wood, marble surfaces, and luxurious furniture. Every detail felt carefully chosen. Every corner felt isolated from the outside world. No neighbors. No interruptions. No escape. Alan carried me upstairs. The staircase seemed to float in midair. The higher we climbed, the quieter everything became. Eventually, he pushed open a pair of double doors. The master suite was enormous. The bedroom overlooked the forest through towering glass walls. Moonlight spilled across silver sheets and dark furnishings. Yet none of that captured my attention. It was the open doorway beside the bedroom that froze me in place. The closet. When Alan finally lowered me onto the carpet, my legs felt unsteady. His hands remained at my waist long enough to keep me balanced. Then he stepped back. "Go ahead." I hesitated. "What?" "Take a look." Something in his expression made my stomach tighten. Slowly, I crossed the room. The moment I stepped into the closet, my breath disappeared. Rows upon rows of clothing stretched before me. Elegant dresses, designer blouses, tailored skirts, cashmere sweaters, shoes arranged with perfect precision. Everything organized meticulously. Everything selected carefully. Everything sized perfectly. For me. My fingers brushed against a soft cardigan hanging nearby. The The realization struck like lightning. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't spontaneous. This had been planned. For a very long time. I turned around. Alan stood in the doorway watching me. You knew. His expression didn't change. You prepared all of this. Silence lingered between us. Then he nodded. Yes. The simple honesty was somehow worse. My heart pounded. How long? His eyes never left mine. Long enough. The answer sent a chill through me. I stared at the endless collection surrounding me. Every item represented preparation, expectation, patience. He hadn't imagined this future. He had built it, piece by piece, long before I ever realized what was happening. You planned everything. I planned a place for you. The certainty in his voice made it impossible to argue. Outside, wind whispered through the trees. Inside, firelight flickered across the walls. And standing in that hidden mountain sanctuary, surrounded by evidence of a future someone else had spent years preparing, I felt the ground shift beneath me once again. For the first time, I realized this wasn't merely a transformation. It was the beginning of an entirely different life.